Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's very much not a happy week. I am down considerably more than the market, about £83,000, 14%. So that's quite a big hit, mostly on the option side, crypto and well, gold sort of hanging around where it was really. But the crypto side sort of took a bit of a hit. And yeah, the option. I mean, Bitcoin isn't actually down all that much, but yeah, the sort of euphoria, brief euphoria on the crypto miners came down a bit. Obviously, compared to the S&P, I'm down far, far more than that. Compared to sort of 14% down, S&P's down 2.5%, which was a bit of a knock. All sort of largely on Friday with the jobs report and things, which we'll come to. And surprisingly, the Nasdaq ever so slightly better performing, 2.48% down. So yeah, sort of reasonable drops in a lot of my stocks on Friday, similar to the market. Some stuff sort of not going down quite as much. Applied materials sort of pretty flat, but yeah, everything's sort of come down. Some 5%, some 10%. I've sort of got some obviously more volatile stocks, and yeah, bit of a whack, but still see sort of good things moving into the end of the year. But let's have a look at some news. So we've had a Q2 release from CME Group. Often sort of provides a bit of a hedge, bit of ballast for the portfolio. Only a very small position, but yeah, it was up on the week ever so slightly. And yeah, they sort of give these broad descriptions and diversification of the company. I've sort of been through that before. But 10% growth year on year for Q2, 71% adjusted operating margin, which is pretty solid. Give you their average daily volume as well for Q2, and yeah, interest rates, derivatives sort of performing quite well, 20% year on year change, equities 13%, and energy commodity derivatives, I'm guessing this is 26%, although it's only what is that, 3 million contracts, so it's not huge, but 26% growth. Very nice. Agricultural commodities 5% up, and then sort of FX only 2%, and metals 9%. But these are both sort of, well, all three very small sectors. It is mainly interest rate products, really. That's 50% of total volume. Really happy to see this as well. Sort of more globalization. Obviously, their main market is the US market. It's the biggest, but derivatives sort of pushing out across the world. So the non-US percentage of their total volume, interest rates, they're getting 32% from the rest of the world. That's the biggest sector for them as a group. 27% equities. FX we saw was only a very small segment, but they're getting 48% of that from the rest of the world. And the metals, what was metals? Yeah, metals was a tiny to their smallest sector, but over half of it coming from non-US. So yeah, not too bad. And energy was fourth, and no, third, wasn't it? Yeah, energy was third, and it's 31% non-US, so pretty solid. And first half of 2025, 8.7 million contracts, and yeah, compared to 7.8 for 2024. So 8.7 million average per day. So really strong. Pushing further into retail as well, it's in 14% compound annual growth rate for retail customers. So they're partnering with Robinhood, eToro, Webull, and Plus 500. People wanting to use derivatives, whether they're sort of degenerate betting on things or sort of hedging other positions. I would sort of expect the former. And yeah, they're introducing more sort of micro, 1 ounce gold futures, sort of small Bitcoin futures, rather than the, 100, 100 lots of something being millions of dollars. This means smaller people can get into some of their products. So yeah, probably not, maybe not the best thing for society, humanity, retail getting into derivatives, but yeah, they're going to sell them if there's demand there. Always like to check on their margins as well, of course. This being one of the highest margin, I believe the highest margin company in my portfolio. So it's good to see what they're bringing in. So for the quarter ending June the 30th, had 1.692 billion in revenue, and yeah, operating income right down to net income, so 1,025 over 1692, 60.5% profit, net profit. So we're above 60, what I like to see. And I suppose just check the 6 monthly, make sure everything's sort of tying up. It's not a one-off. 1981 in 6 monthly net income, over 3,334. So yeah, 59.5. So this quarter has been, or Q2 has been slightly better than Q1, but both very positive quarters. 60% net income is just absurd. So it looks like there'll be some more large dividends coming. They sort of do a quarterly dividend and then a special dividend on top of that. Not great for me, obviously, because we get 15% withholding tax, and there is talks of the US raising that. So yeah, would prefer that they maybe did a little bit more buybacks or sort of acquisitions, ideally, if they had someone out there, sort of similar to BlackRock. But yeah, at the moment we're just getting sort of a large amount of dividends from that net profit. I can't imagine they can sort of pile back, all 60% into growing the business. They're sort of growing reasonably quick as they are. So yeah, trying to accelerate that even further may be difficult. Got Riot's quarterly earnings, which the market really has not liked at all. I never sort of focus all that much on these because we kind of know what is happening every month. They give us figures every month, and we've obviously already had April, May, and June's, so we've had the whole quarter. You just don't get net profit and those sort of figures, but we know how much Bitcoin they hold. So we come out with this 219 million in net profit. It's not net profit, it's just the Bitcoin going up. Bitcoin's going up 25,000 in Q2. So yeah, they'll be sort of reporting a huge gain, but it is sort of fake gain, as I call it. And we've seen with MicroStrategy sort of reported 10 billion net profit, like one of the highest quarter profits for any company. And yeah, stock sort of did nothing because everybody knows it's coming. Basically, we knew the price on June the 30th, and yeah, you could have worked it out then. So anything basically gets priced in back then. I do think there's a little bit less focus on the miners, and some of these numbers sometimes come as a bit of a surprise, but yeah, certainly this time it hasn't really happened. And yeah, look at the sort of quarter's numbers, 219 million in net income, and if they sort of do the adjustments and take all of that things out that they don't want to have in there, which probably should be in there, they get to 495 million in adjusted EBITDA. And we also had yet another sort of 1 exahash update from Hive Digital. This sort of is no huge surprise. I think they just need to sort of get on with it over the next month and bring costs down. The electricity cost coming down on a sort of blended basis would be good. Paraguay being relatively cheap, but the existing locations, I think they're in Iceland still. Some of these are quite expensive. Could at some point be worth just shutting down, basically, which isn't ideal. Maybe some of that could switch to high performance computing. Don't know. They don't seem sort of too interested in announcing anything else about HPC at the moment. They have their sort of GPUs that they run, but it's sort of a separate side. So yeah, nothing too much happening with Hive. Obviously, price come down with Bitcoin coming down, and yeah, everyone's very pessimistic. We're getting a lot of US sort of trade news this week. Donald Trump announcing an agreement with the EU and Japan. We had before, and yeah, these are sort of somewhat positive, I suppose. Seem to be very positive for the US more than anyone else, but whether there's things going on in the background that make it more favourable for the other countries that they don't want to announce, I do suspect there could be some of that. The EU are cutting sort of tariffs on the US basically, and the US imposing 15% tariff on the EU, along with a load of commitments from the EU to invest in the US. EU didn't seem to get, on the face of it, a lot out of this. So yes, very odd. And then later on in the week, we got the full list of Trump's new tariffs. So he's back on the sort of reciprocal, adjusted tariffs. We got Brazil at 50%, China at 30%, which is basically a sort of pause. Not seeing whether he's officially delayed I think it was early August date, but yeah, 30% at the moment. 35 on Canada, and then this sort of huge list, in descending order of various countries, admittedly all the way down to the UK right at the bottom at 10%. So we still have some amount of special relationship at least with them, although they have I think they still have a trade surplus with us, so they're not really all that bothered about tariffing us. But yeah, this market certainly didn't seem to like both this and the jobs report. So you had the Federal Reserve meeting. Obviously, they didn't cut rates, and we got a resignation shortly afterwards. Mrs. Adriana Kugler will exit on August the 8th. It looks like she was due to leave the board in January the 31st next year. So yeah, she's resigning earlier. She only became a governor in September 2023. So yeah, giving it the usual sort of, it's been an honour to serve and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's quite early. Obviously, all eyes are now on Donald Trump, because he gets to appoint basically whoever he wants into this position. It's one of, I think, what is there, 13 members. So yeah, it'll be another potential dissent, or sort of another person to try and influence a rate cut in September. So yeah, he keeps saying, Powell should resign. Powell should resign just like Adriana, a Biden appointee. He's saying it every day, basically. Powell is too slow, too stupid even. We're getting sort of personal insults. And yeah, this is just sort of seen as yet another point of him maybe being able to get his way. So it was rather a big news week, quite a lot of bits and pieces in here. Tuesday, you got the JOLTS US sort of job openings numbers. That sort of coming down quite a bit. You would think is worse for Labour. There's less jobs available for the workforce to get. We had some GDP numbers and bits and pieces. Pretty poor from the EU, although slightly better than expected. Non-farm payrolls from the ADP was slightly better than expected, and yeah, the last month's was slightly revised up to a little bit less negative than it was. And yeah, Fed rate decision. We knew they weren't going to cut. Or it was 98% certain they weren't going to cut, but you still get the headlines. Fed keeps rates where they are. It's more about the speech and sort of what happens afterwards. And yeah, Thursday, unemployment rate, they were expecting in the EU, they were expecting to rise, and it didn't, but it's still 6.2%, which is quite high. And yeah, Friday, well, you got the core PCE, which is the sort of the Fed's preferred inflation, although that is June. It's quite lagging, but 2.8%, higher inflation than they would like. I think we probably should focus more on core CPI if it's going to be that lagging. And yeah, Friday you got the non-farm payrolls. So headline number was 73,000 from 106,000 expected. But they've reduced the last 2 months by basically 90%. So a little bit odd. A lot of this in government jobs from the looks of it. You've seen private non-farm payrolls. Well, actually, there is quite a lot of private reduced there, 74,000 down to 3,000. They have their estimates that end up wrong sometimes, but that is quite the hit. But so then there's, what is that, 50, 60,000 on the government side that are wrong. So not quite sure how you get government employees quite that wrong. They've had the Doge cuts and things sort of over the last few months, sort of messing with government employment, but that still seems poor. So I think it was 250,000 jobs revised downwards over the last 2 months. So they have not liked that. And well, it's potentially putting a September rate cut back on the cards, but if it's for bad reasons, then that's not ideal. And you also had Trump, I believe, fire the lady in charge of labour statistics. So, yeah, everyone's not very happy. And ISM manufacturing numbers all very, very poor. So, yeah, not getting the sort of industrial boom that some people are expecting. So basically, not a lot of good news this week, and market certainly didn't like it, especially those fairly poor job numbers on Friday, of course. This took a huge knock on people like CleanSpark, Riot Platforms, especially they had their earnings as well. I'm guessing that sort of had a reasonable effect, although shouldn't have been unknown. We basically know their earnings. But yeah, 17.75% down on just on Friday, right? I think it's sort of about 25% down on the week. So yeah, big hit. Not too much happening with the gold and silver side. Coeur Mining and Equinox sort of not moving a huge amount. Fresnillo back down below 14, but obviously it's still very much positive. Iron, $15.40. I made my sale of some of the options when that was $21.30. So looks reasonably well timed, although I didn't take that much. And yeah, looking a little bit sad. Pan American back down to 27. KGHM. They had the enormous drop on copper. Sort of over $1 drop on copper when it's $5.70, I think it was. That's quite a large drop, but that is US prices only. It's sort of just bringing it back in line with London prices and global prices. So there you go. And the option side obviously has taken the biggest hit. This was at sort of 260,000, I think, intraday at one point in sort of the previous week. So yeah, nearly 100,000, well, over 100,000 down since then. Most of this coming from herein, of course, because that was a large position, about 10,000 off Hive as well. Coeur Mining and Equinox sort of taken a small hit, but nothing too much, because gold and silver have held up reasonably well. Quite a knock-off Max as well. People sort of a little bit unsure as to where they're going to go. They kind of need an industrial sort of boom to get going. Riot took an enormous hit in percentage-wise with that drop. Obviously 17% in one day. The options get absolutely walloped. Similarly with Cypher, this was £4,000 position, even just a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't sold any. So yeah, it's all looking a little bit worse for wear, but you have to take this sort of volatility when you're in options. So yeah, we'll have to see sort of what comes from the rest of the second half of the year. Still hoping for a good end to the year. I think everyone else is, but starting to be doubts as to whether everyone's just hoping for too much and no one's actually buying. So there you go. Leave your thoughts in comments below and like and subscribe. See you soon.